The Cartoonerific podcast is sponsored by the wonderful World of Animation Gallery, home of rare and wonderful fine animation art. Visit their website at wwagallery.com. And for our Cartoonerific listeners, you will receive a special 10% discount off any purchase if you purchase by March 25th, 2024. Just go to wwagallery.com and enter code CARTOON10 for your 10% discount. Once again, this discount is only valid until midnight, March 25th, 2024. Once again, visit wwagallery.com.
The following is a Cartoonerific Studios presentation.
Welcome to Cartoon Fun, it's Cartoonerific. Yeah! It's Cartoonerific. Cartoonerific. It's Cartoonerific. With your host Brian Mitchell.
Hey, it's the Cartoonerific podcast, classic animated cartoons, with your host, Brian Mitchell. And thank you for coming by and sitting for a spell. When I worked at Warner Brothers in the early 90s, I had worked on Tiny Toon Adventures and Animaniacs. My job there initially was to do character layout for Tiny Toon Adventures. Eventually, I worked my way into storyboard. And on Animaniacs, I ended up doing some walk cycles for Yakko, Wacko, and Dot, which they really liked. Also did a little bit of design work, but mostly storyboard. And storyboard is really important in a cartoon because it's basically the blueprint for the cartoon. You know, everything is in there. You have the writers, they're writing the script, and they hand the script down to you, and now you have to interpret it. Okay, there's no visuals, whatever, at all. You know, maybe some drawings of backgrounds for settings done by a layout artist, a talented layout artist over there. And then basically you would take that and a little bit of information you have, maybe a model that was set up for you, and you would just go ahead and visualize the entire cartoon. That's what you did as a storyboard artist. So basically you're doing the blueprint of the cartoon. And you're influencing everything. You're influencing the design of the characters. You're influencing the timing of the jokes and stuff. And but you're setting all the staging. So basically, what you're doing, it's kind of like you're directing the cartoon. But the director actually takes that and he kind of times out all the scenes, and then he hands it to the animators after it's recorded. And then basically, that's where the cartoon starts coming together. But basically that blueprint, you could just shoot the individual panels, and if you time them and you put them up and you match them to a soundtrack, it will play. It will play as a cartoon, just not as an animated cartoon. It'll just be stills in its place, but you can get a sense of the timing and how the cartoon is going to play out according to that. So storyboard's very, very important. And like I said, it's next to direction. It's very close to direction because you are basically laying it all out for everybody. So anyway, not to beat a dead horse, we had a wonderful talent pool at Warner Brothers. And we had old-timers, we had young people, we had people that had been in the business for 20 years. I came in, I was maybe 4 or 5 years into the business. So, you know, I had animated already. I had done character layout on the Mighty Mouse show. That's kind of where I got my start, even though I was doing stuff before that. But the Ralph Bakshi Mighty Mouse show. But I had done a couple of different things, and I was animating at Don Bluth Studios. I was animating on Slimer and the Ghostbusters and doing some commercials and stuff like that. But when I came into Warner Brothers, it was kind of amazing who was there. We had some real veterans in the business. And when I was a kid, I used to watch these Roadrunner cartoons, these Warner Brothers Roadrunner cartoons, which were directed by Chuck Jones. But he had his team of animators, and one of the animators that worked on these cartoons was a man named Tom Ray. And it always struck me funny when I would see the cartoons because his name was only 6 letters, But he ended up, he was on our unit. He was a timing director, and got to talk to him every day. I'd go in, grab a bran muffin, and ask him about the old days in the 50s working on the Warner Brothers shorts. We had Charlie Downs. Charlie Downs had worked with Ward Kimball, another one of my heroes. Back in the 50s at Disney, he worked on the space shows, worked on some TV shows, did a lot of Ludwig von Drake animation, which was also a favorite character. So got to talk with Charlie Downs because he was there, and also doing timing. We had Art Leonardi, who worked at Warner Brothers in the late 50s and ended up being instrumental going with Friz Freleng over to Patty Freleng, and being a key guy working on the Pink Panthers and on the Aardvark cartoons, which I really, really loved when I was growing up. Had Brian Seaburn. Brian Seaburn was a background artist working at Disney back in the 70s and 80s. I'm trying to think of all the people because there's a lot of them. We had Jim Fletcher, who worked on Lady and the Tramp. He was animating on Lady and the Tramp. He didn't do enough footage to get credit on the films, but he had worked at Disney Studios, and he knew a lot of people in the business, especially a lot of old character actors, and he would go out to lunch with them. And I was offered to go out, and I think it was a Sportsman's Lodge in Studio City. And I could have met people like Pat Buttram and some of these old character actors over there. And I don't know why I never went. I'm thinking about it now. It's like I'm kicking myself. But anyway, we had so much talent in that studio. And there was always new people coming in that were very talented. I sat next to a gentleman named Randy Haycock, and Randy wanted to become a Disney animator. He just had that fire. That's what he wanted to do, and he was going to somehow make it. He ended up leaving Warner Brothers and went to work for Walt Disney Pictures, working as an animator, and became one of their top animators. So there you go. We had a bunch of wonderful people. Tony Craig, who had come in, I believe, on Tiny Toons, ended up working his way up to storyboard from character layout, and then went on to work at Disney as a producer. And he worked on Mickey Mouse Works and House of Mouse and 101 Dalmatians, and I believe involved with a Lilo and Stitch show later on. He did so many wonderful, wonderful things there. And all these people, like I said, all these people coming in. Well, one of those people that came in, and she had been doing some animation with some friends, and the whole purpose was to try to land a job at a studio, was brought into Warner Brothers, and she came in as a character layout person and ended up working in storyboard, and she became pretty darn good at it. She's very funny, and I became friends with her when we were working on Animaniacs, probably even before that on Tiny Toons, but we would just get together with a bunch of us, and we'd go out and we'd have lunch and have a lot of fun. Anyway, she's here today to talk about her career. She's worked on Tiny Toons, Animaniacs, over at Disney on those shows, Mickey Mouse Works and House of Mouse and 101 Dalmatians. And she worked on Clifford the Big Red Dog and all this wonderful stuff through the years. But anyway, I'm glad that we can have her with us today. So please stay tuned. Don't go away.
You're listening to the Cartoonerific Podcast, classic animated cartoons with your host animator, Brian Mitchell. And now it's time for our special Cartoonerific guest.
Well, you're in for a treat. Today we have on a wonderful artist. She's delved into other creativity in different things other than animation. And so she doesn't just restrict herself to animation, but she has worked for a long time in this field, mainly doing storyboard and storyboard direction and supervision. Well, please welcome Miss Cynthia Petrovic. Hi, Cynthia. Okay, enough of it.
Thank you. Oh, boy, they stopped quickly.
They did. They did. Well,
they're well trained.
They're a very obedient audience we have here of me. How have you been?
Well, I have been pretty good. And I just am going to say it's so cool to talk to you again, see you, talk to you. I love your podcast. I love that you're keeping that alive.
Well, thank you.
It's, I always appreciated your enthusiasm for the business.
Well, thank you.
Always been enthusiastic.
Thank you for that. Cynthia, tell our audience, because they all want to know, okay, were you always into cartoons? How young were you when you really discovered cartoons? And how old were you when you said, wow, this would be kind of cool to maybe be in the business? Mm-hmm. What do you think?
I started drawing when I was 2.
Wow.
So it wasn't because I was watching cartoons on TV. Mm-hmm. I was already drawing. And I was using that sort of as a camera to my world as a child. And my mother saved a lot of the stuff that I did back then. So mm-hmm. I've got a lot of my early works. And it was just basically like, I mean, I guess any child is, drawing their what's going on around them, pets that relatives may have, or things going on at school. Mm-hmm. And how it's interesting because it does dovetail into the animation realm. But as I got a little older, about 5, I wrote my first book, wrote and illustrated my first book about a family going to the Natural History Museum in Los Angeles.
Wow. That's amazing. You still have it?
Well, yes. Yeah. My mom saved all this stuff.
Oh, my God.
But that idea came because she took me to the museum once. So I go home mm-hmm. and then I write a book about it. But I was already in that mode of writing and illustrating in a story format.
Wow.
So as I moved and got to be about 8 or 9, I was writing books mm-hmm. all the time. Just little short stories about, dogs, cats, a lot of animals, some people. And another thing that I found I liked was it was basically my 2 toys in childhood. Okay. It was a pad of paper and my record player. Ah. Because what I would do is I'd turn on my favorite 45s.
Okay.
And I'd see all the stuff. I'd see animals. I'd see things moving. I saw the music.
Okay. That's great.
And sometimes I just lay on my bed and watch the movie in my head. Kind of like, I think the way, when I think back on that, it's like the way Fantasia had to have been created. Mm-hmm. Nothing that grandiose. But you're listening to something, and then you come up, there's something moving around, in your head that's a completely different scenario, but it's inspired by the music. Right. None of those symphony pieces were written to have dinosaurs in them, or, I don't think they were. Yeah. But that was kind of how this all evolved. And then I continued, and my books got a little more. I joined up with one of my dearest friends, Brandy, in mm-hmm. 5th grade. And we would sit at lunch every day and draw books for one another. It was just, we drew, and we always drew each other as these cat characters. We weren't girls. Right. We were cats.
Oh, you were cats.
And so but we were not furries. I want to make that distinction right here. However, that is why I sort of somehow kind of get the whole thing, but not the entire furry. But I have an appreciation for that. And we would create, well, you know how they would have the Scholastic book services at school? And you could make a list. They'd show you the list of what you could order. Right. And then you bring the money. Well, my Brandy and I would make our own book list to give to one another. Mm-hmm. You want a book about, Sammy the cat, or a book about this, or puzzles. And then we would just check what we wanted the other person to make. We didn't charge money. Right. And then it would finally be the day where we would exchange our comic books. Oh, wow. And I mean, that was primarily what I did, really, was the books. And then as I got into high school, this is where everything changed. When I hit about 13, everything changed, and I turned into this sarcastic, cynical. I mean, my personality I wasn't like that as a kid. I was very curious about things around me, but man, and I used to write books like ripping corporations apart. Like, like Brandy and I were really big on like McDonald's, like trick that fast food companies, like, you know, the little game stickers and stuff.
Yeah.
And I mean, we could spend hours writing and drawing this stuff. And I've still got so many of those things, which is not always satire.
Right.
Is what I was, that was the big, it turned from cute little stories about little kitty cats into like, you know, satire and commentary on things. And that came from reading Mad Magazine.
Yeah.
For me.
Right.
Because that was my favorite. If there's reading material, Mad Magazine was it. My aunt had a pile of them a mile high.
So you must have,
when we went over,
You must have really liked the Mort Drucker, like Lost in Space. They would have a Lost in Space or a Star Trek parody or something like that. But
well, it was more Al Jaffe.
Oh, okay. All right. That's right.
Yeah, he would do those like no frills airline, and he'd show you like the terrible experiences that you get with cheap products.
Right.
And there was a paperback I picked up. I was like 9 years old. Picked it up at like a book fair.
Okay.
And it was up Madison Avenue. It was a paperback.
Right.
And I wasn't sure what was in it. The whole thing was nothing but mocking how companies try to trick you.
Oh, wow.
But see, that really, you know, like the 50% buy one, get one free, but then they reduce the amount of stuff in the box. And I just however I already was thinking in general, that really appealed to me. And as I got older, I incorporated that you can't trick me kind of attitude into my writing.
Right.
So as far as animation is concerned, I lived a few miles from Disneyland.
Right.
What
town?
Like
you grew up in what town?
Anaheim. Well, Tustin and Anaheim primarily.
Okay. All right.
So going to Disneyland was like going to school. And I'll tell you, it was the audio animatronics that first got my attention. Right. Roughly around that same age, 9 to 10.
Right.
And I fit in America Sings, which was like, America Sings was like the greatest thing in the world. That attraction does not exist anymore.
No,
That's
it doesn't.
Revolving, and we all know what happened on that.
Yeah.
And I'd go home, and I'd fashion these paper puppets and attach a string and stick them like on the wall. And I'd turn my record player on and play music, and then kind of pull all the strings, like try to recreate the band of animals there in my bedroom. But really, really excited about the idea. Even then, I sat there and thought, look at all these people clapping along, laughing.
Right.
But there's nobody alive up there.
It's a bunch of robots.
Well, isn't that interesting?
Well, you know,
we can suspend disbelief and clap at a fox singing a 1890s drinking song.
You could say the same thing about an animated film where it's just a bunch of drawings, individual drawings that just kind of
That's
clap.
the idea.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's the illusion. We're magicians. And a lot of
in a way.
Yeah. Well, the Muppets are the same thing. It's
that would be all part of it.
Yeah.
It was just an observation I made that, you know, you don't have to watch a live person necessarily.
Right.
You know, even the robots. So
yeah, I love that. I love that show, by the way. America Sings. Did you see, James Lopez has a pet project that he's been working on where he took the soundtrack of America Sings and he's fashioning boards and doing animation in the 70s Disney style. And and he has some of that up on YouTube. You have to check it out.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I'll see if I could send you. It's on YouTube. I think it's on YouTube or Vimeo. James Lopez. He has a thing called Hullabaloo.
Animating the ride as it was?
What he did was he's taking the soundtrack and he's pretty much creating the same characters, just using the same characters, but just creating a film out of it instead of the rotation. to explain this to people in the audience,
I see it.
Okay,
yeah.
Carousel. Have you been to Disneyland or Disney World? I think it's in Disney World now.
Disney World, I went once.
Yes. The Carousel of Progress is basically about 5 different stages that go around on a railroad track. It's a circular theater, and basically the audience moves from one scene to another, and then it stops every time. And so that basically was the same concept for America's. It's hard to explain, but it just goes around in a circle. It revolves around. The audience revolves around the stages, gets back to the main stage, which is just basically a curtain with America Sings on it or the Carousel of Progress. People exit, and as people are exiting, then people are coming in on, I guess, the next stage. Something like that. Anyway, I think it's about 5 or 6 stages around. And
8. There's 8.
Okay, you know better.
I think.
Because you lived there, so.
I lived it. Well, I wasn't there constantly. Let's just say it was convenient. It was easy to get to Disneyland when it was time to go to Disneyland.
Right. But anyway, yeah, James is just taking the soundtrack and just fashioning a whole new thing out of it, and it looks great. It looks like something out of Robin Hood.
Well, I was going to say, I just looked it up while you were describing it here.
Yes.
This animation is beautiful.
Yes.
I mean, this is like Milt Kahl.
Yes.
And with him using the Mark Davis designs, which I always loved the designs that Mark Davis came up with, the Sam the Eagle, it's so sharp and bright. The way the eyes look are so alive. And I'm just seeing his kind of loose, sketchy. This is so satisfying.
Yeah,
watching this beautiful handmade. I don't know if he did it by hand or with computer sketch.
No. He synced it to the soundtrack of this. So
it's terrific. Yeah. I'm going to look at this whole thing. I can see he's got some little storyboard things going on. Yeah, and he's dead on.
Yeah.
With capturing the characters, how they look as.
That's right.
3D.
America Sing, and I thought of that as a great idea. Disney has the soundtrack. They got the characters all designed. Why not just animate it?
Release it as a short.
Yeah, release it as a short. Put it in theaters or whatever. Put it on Disney Plus. It's better than a lot of the stuff on there. So.
Yeah, I have not been to a Disneyland resort in almost 20 years. Wow. I don't know. I don't have the same
enthusiasm,
love or desire.
Yeah.
Well, I just am looking at what's happening at the Walt Disney Company, and I don't even know what it is anymore.
Mm-hmm.
They're just throwing everything at the wall, and I don't think I could, knowing how much affection I have for the 1980s Disneyland, and I know things have to evolve and change.
Right.
I don't want to walk into, I went to, what was it? The California Adventure.
Right.
I don't want to go there again. I know that was way back in the beginning when they had to kind of, retool a few. Maybe, you have certain phases in your life.
Right.
Certain things really need to play a big part.
Right.
And then it's time to kind of, I don't know.
Maybe move on?
I cannot hold the whole Disney thing in my hands anymore. I don't know what it is. The Star Wars and all the superhero things, and then they're Muppets, and it's like getting like a giant.
It's a giant kitchen sink. It's a giant kitchen sink with everything being piled in it.
There's a heart to that.
Yeah.
Thank God, I grew up with that, and even into my early 20s. But to continue along how I ended up with the animation thing is a little bit twisty and turny.
Yeah.
Is that, made it through high school. Couldn't wait to get out of high school.
Right.
And I knew about CalArts.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe it was called Otis Parsons. They're very expensive schools. I was like 18 at the time, let's say.
Right.
I didn't have any money. I had a friend drive me up to the campus of CalArts. He just went on the weekend. I said, let me check it out. Let me see what it's like up there.
Right.
We drove up there, and they just happened to have the halls open, and there must have been a windstorm right before we came because there was just
trash
all over the floors, all over the halls of CalArts, which is no way to judge what they could have offered me. But I already was thinking, I don't want to get into debt
Right.
Student loan debt. That was another thing where I just didn't. So between the halls that were a mess and the $20,000 to $30,000 debt, which was back then probably $100,000 to now, I opted for community college. And what I did was I decided to major in art.
Okay.
I figured whatever I'm going to do, even if it has nothing quite to do with a big goal, I want to still focus on it.
Okay.
And then that was 1985 when the classic Black Cauldron had hit the screens.
Classic is the word.
Yeah, the height of Disney genius there. But at my age, hey, great stuff. Well, no, that's when I met Tim George. Tim George, very instrumental player in my life, changed the course of my life. I'll tell you.
Wow.
And we met through, because I'm flipping through. Every week we got the Penny Saver.
Right.
Penny Saver was a little newspaper.
Yeah,
that came in the mail for used cars.
We had them here in New York, and you would flip through it and immediately go into the trash.
Unless you're looking for a used car. But he had placed an ad looking for animators. So of course it's like, what's this? He had been working on a little project for a guy named Ken Stack.
Yes, I've heard of him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was putting together this little fantasy thing he was working on back then. So I called Tim up. He lived in Fullerton, not too far away. And I actually had my mom drive me over to his house. I didn't have a car yet.
Right.
This was way back in the beginning, And he showed me everything pinned up on the wall.
Right.
All the drawings, because he was really into animation, all the key, breaking down. And it's like, oh boy, this is like, look at, I'm kind of like in it now. This is cool.
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, I'd love to. I didn't know what I was going to do because I didn't know anything I didn't know how to animate anything, but I knew this was like, I like this and I want to, kind of move in this direction. So, I would go over to his apartment and we would, work on it. And what he was doing, basically what he did was he took me under his wing and had me do, like loop animation, like a run cycle.
Okay.
And then he would develop the film. He'd shoot it on 8mm.
Right.
And then
that's the way you did it.
Hook it, hook it in a loop and watch it on the wall.
Right.
And there's my wonky, little gingerbread horse,
right.
Character that we were working on. But I mean, this was like, my God, this was wonderful.
Yeah.
And we used to go to Disneyland together and we went to see Black Cauldron.
Right. Did you rag on it at that time, or did you?
What's that?
Did you rag on it? Did you not like it?
Disney?
Black
no,
Cauldron.
Absolutely not. Black. Did I make fun of Black Cauldron?
Yeah.
Is that what you're asking?
That's what I'm asking.
Absolutely not. No. In as we think about certain things they made, they're not all the greatest.
Right.
But at that time, I wanted to be exposed to everything.
Right.
I mean, if you're looking at something that other people did that you would like to do, it doesn't matter. You just want to be in there.
Right.
So no, it was exciting. Tim was like, oh, hey, this is a big thing. It was very sincere.
Right.
That was very sincere. We parted ways. I continued in college because I really didn't know. I was working retail at the time.
Right.
Interestingly, retail experience ended up helping me down the line. Right.
Okay.
Working with customers.
Right.
Understanding all of that.
Right.
Anyway, about 1989, end of 1989, I'm working at a camera store. I get a call from Tim out of the blue. Okay. Tim had broken the fourth wall. He said he was working at Sullivan Bluth. He got a job at Sullivan Bluth on Rockadoodle. Yeah. I mean, out of the two of us, he did it. He crossed the bridge.
Right.
And of course, that woke up something in me like, and he said a few words to me that changed my life as he was explaining what he was doing, the in-betweener. In-betweener. He said, you could do this. And he said it with such breezy confidence that I actually quit school. And I said, let's work on a portfolio. And oh my God, my portfolio is terrible. But I worked hard on, trying to make it show for what I knew and from what he was teaching me at the time. Right. I put together something that showed that I knew what I wanted. It may not have been there 100%, but I knew what I wanted to do. Right. There were some key things in there. And then we started shopping it around. I went and took a in-between test at Sullivan Bluth.
Mm-hmm.
And, I muddled through it.
Right.
Nothing came of that. I submitted to Disney TV. I remember, they would have people do little comments once your portfolio, was returned.
Right.
And one of the comments was no. Oh, one of them said, to Chuck Jones.
Wait,
what an insult.
Wait, what did it say?
That they thought my work was to Chuck Jones.
What? God.
Yeah, what an insult, huh? One of the greatest directors the Warner Brothers ever had. My work was too much like his. When I
got in, everybody was saying, you got to stop drawing that Milk Call thing. You got to stop drawing like that.
Okay,
one of the finest draftsmen in animation is saying, you got to stop that, buddy. You got to stop that, and you got to get with what we're doing now,
Which studio said that to you?
Is it Bakshi? I was hired.
Why would they?
I was hired by Ralph Bakshi and John Kricfalusi.
Ralph Bakshi? Okay, well, all right.
Yeah, but they're not the ones who said that. They're not the ones who said that. There were other people in there that said that. And some of them are industry leaders now, which I can't. And we worked with one of those people. I can't tell you.
Don't even get me started on, failing upwards in this business is like, there's no other way to do it.
Right.
If you suck, you're going to win. No, not all the time, but hey. Okay, and then the other comment that they wrote was no. I mean, just a cold, simple no. And I had driven all the way up from Fullerton in my 77 Buick LeSabre, and I'm sitting there in the parking lot of Disney TV there on Cahuenga reading this no. And I got to drive all the way back home to Orange County. Then I went up to Class D Tupo and got a test. Oh, God, it's like something I would not be suited for, like a background on The Simpsons. But look, it was a test. Tim was giving me a bunch of phone numbers.
Right.
So I'm cold calling with zero experience. What else am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
This was all at the beginning of 1990. So you think if we started January of 1990, I took the test. Well, it was Bart playing a video game. So I had to do the background and him moving around. And I understood what was needed. I just didn't understand basic construction, volume, all the things that I would have learned at CalArts had I gone.
Yeah.
And the director actually took the time to make some corrections, and I could see what he was doing. Okay, I'm learning. I could see he's keeping things solid. He's not mushing. The head's not stretching or compressing. He looks the same in every shot. And, between customers at the camera store, I'd be sitting there drawing my Simpsons test.
Yeah.
And some ways I didn't know what am I doing? I don't even know what I'm doing. I drove all the way back up there to Hollywood, and there was a secretary sitting there. And I said something like, oh, well, so how did my test go or whatever? And she said, well, don't quit your job.
Oh, God.
And then I had to turn around, drive all the way back in my Sabre to Orange County. Well, no, I mean, okay, so that was the end of it. And
this business is just so anytime you get into a business with the arts, right? If you're going to be an actor, an actress, or a dancer, or whatever, or an artist, cartoonist, it's so loaded with rejection, and it's also some of it's subjective. Some of it is just simply you could have all the chops, you could be drawing with the volumes, and you could know your stuff animation wise, and then they'll just dismiss you with a simple comment like, too Frizz Freeling, too Wardy, too Ward Kimball.
Yeah.
You'll get stuff like that, and it's infuriating sometimes because you're Yeah.
There was actually there was a little studio in Encino that was doing some little Christian cartoons, and I called them.
Right.
And I remember, I was like, and then Deke. I thought I might have been able to have gotten onto, I think it was Super Mario Brothers. That was what I thought was going to be my break-in, but it didn't happen.
Right.
And I remember, I think it was after the Simpsons thing, that horrible crack that woman made to me. I went home that day, and I did. I went inside, shed a few tears.
Yeah.
But I got Tim gave me an address to Warner Brothers Animation.
Right.
In Sherman Oaks. It's like, man, everything is so far up in the valley. So I took my little portfolio Drove all the way up there, my little resume typed out with no experience on the resume. And he had given me the name of Art Leonardi.
Yes.
That was who I was supposed to leave it with.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what I should say during the story is that this was really a boom time. Okay, this was a new golden age of animation like I don't even think we've seen since. When Ren and Stimpy was like the rage and everybody wanted to up their cartoon game.
Yeah.
So they were hiring. This was not like some dead, time period of animation. The early 90s was like, Tiny Toons. They were doing the second season of Tiny Toons.
Right.
They'd already done a first season.
Yeah.
So I go in there, drive all up the elevator, the 11th floor, and here's Don Leonardi, one of his daughters, sitting there at the front desk. And I said, hi, I just dropping this off for Art Leonardi. Oh, he's my dad. Sure. I'll take it to him.
Right.
Anyway, I got a message that a Ken Boyer wanted to meet with me.
Mm-hmm.
Not Art Leonardi. He was on vacation actually, but it was Ken Boyer.
Right.
And it said 2:30. I saved that piece of paper, by the way, my appointment time on it.
Yeah.
I still have it. So back I went, my Buick LeSabre all the way back up, sat down with Ken, and it's like, my God, here I am in Warner Brothers Animation. He hired me.
Wow.
He said, I see a lot of potential in your work. Okay. Then I said hello to Dawn. Dawn was walking around, Dawn Leonardi. And she says, I didn't give it to my dad because he was on vacation. But she said, I gave it to Ken, passed along. She said, I really thought it was cool that you listed Kmart on your resume as a place you would work. Like, is that what it took? In my naive.
That Kmart magic. Yes. That's hysterical.
The blue light special paid off for me.
It did.
What else was I going to put in there? I hadn't gotten an animation job yet. Well, now we're entering an era that you were part of.
Mm-hmm.
So what Ken was offering. My goodness, I got paid to go to art school is what ended up happening.
Right.
Ken was, oh my gosh. Along with Kim, Ken Boyer was like, instrumental in getting me off on the right track with learning all the stuff that the Simpsons director wasn't seeing in my work.
Right.
What makes a character appealing? What makes them cute? What are the proportions, at least for what we were doing? Basics.
General posing. Just the general posing, like where you're placing the legs, Yeah.
So
yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, Ken was a teacher. He's just like a natural teacher.
He was.
And he wanted you to be great. So you got hooked up with the right person.
It was a miracle.
Mm-hmm.
It was a miracle, and I will forever be grateful. And I'll tell you, it took at least a year. I'm going to say it took about a year. I was making progress along the lines, and actually there was one scene I had with Foghorn Leghorn, as one of the teachers.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a joke he did where he hit the side of his head and, his brains popped out of his ears. And, Ken was looking at some of this stuff and he's like, there you go. See, very good. But see, he saw something where, again, a light came on.
Right.
With how I was beginning to understand to convey and act these things.
Mm-hmm.
And this was very exciting and encouraging to me. I went home every night and turned on, we had videotapes back then, VHS tape of Three Caballeros. And I was sitting there sketching and drawing. This is what I was doing at night. I really felt I owed the universe, that sort of, I don't know what, thanks, gratitude maybe.
Yeah.
That there was work I had to do, and it was amazing. So many, I was working among so many talented people. And one of the things that blew me away was, okay, we go up there, 11th floor, everybody's got their cubicles, Mike Fontenelle and Bruce Timm was old Batman crew was just down the hall,
right.
All the famous old Batman. And it's like, here's these guys. And, I was 23 when I started. These guys were 28, 29. And boy, they were like the big cheeses.
Yeah.
They were the hit. Those guys were you don't touch them. They're super talented. They're directors. They're almost 30. Wow. But their cubicles were filled with toys. I had never seen anything like this in my life. I was used to, what did a corporate office look like? Binders, maybe a picture of your wife and kids.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Simpson toys, Batman figures, all the pinup girl pictures and toys. It's like, these are grown guys.
Mm-hmm.
Look at what then Tex Avery. These guys knew who Tex Avery was.
Yeah.
My favorite, now you talk about cartoons. I did watch Tom and Jerry, Bugs Bunny, and Tex Avery. By far, Tex is number one. He always will be to me.
Yeah.
I did watch those in the afternoon as a kid. And those were just, this guy, look at what he did. Mm-hmm. Like making those two characters run off the film strip.
Yeah.
Stop, and then come back again.
Right.
And then we continue the film. Brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody else was offering kids that kind of perspective on anything.
Right. He was an amazing director. Inspired me.
Inspiring.
Those were the cartoons I looked forward to when they would have the MGM package of Tom and Jerry's and Barney Bears, and then they would, and then they had the Tex Avery's, and I like the Tom and Jerry cartoons, but I always looked forward to like that Tex Avery cartoon in the middle. So.
Well, it was that one cartoon of the bulldog. It was a Droopy and what was a bulldog's name?
Spike.
Okay. Something happens where his ass blows up or his ass goes on fire. Okay. And he's rushing. He's in such pain. I said, oh, no. I know what it was. Something happened where he had to run up a hill on his butt cheeks.
Yeah.
I think he was balancing stuff. He had a bunch of bottles because they had to not wake up the bear.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
The bear was sleeping in the cave, and Droopy's constantly throwing him bottles and things. He's catching everything, and he's got nothing else, so he has to antics and runs out the door on his butt cheeks up a hill.
Right.
And then he can spill everything, way out far away from the cave and come rushing back. Again, who's going to give you that?
No. There was a Droopy cartoon where it's the wolf. It's that, y'all, that kind of Huckleberry Hound voice, Dawes Butler.
Yeah, that's right.
So they did one where the wolf he has like a cannon, right? And then he puts a target over on Droopy's door, and Droopy comes out while he's loading the cannon. He takes the target and puts it on his butt. And then he fires it, and of course the thing circles around, hits him in the target, and explodes. But there was another one they did where it's the same exact gag, but he pulls the cannon, the missile goes off, goes all the way around, and disappears. And his butt gets really big.
Oh.
And
I don't know if I've seen that one.
It's one of those latter Droopies, and it was a gag by Mike Law, and I was surprised they left it in because basically the character was getting an explosive enema.
And then they just ended the scene that way?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, they've done variations on that, but I couldn't believe that was left in a cartoon. And Michael Law directed it. So he was like co-directing with Avery at the time. And then I guess Avery left, and then he did this cartoon. It's just his name on it. And I was like, I couldn't believe they let that go through.
Yeah, well, there was a few surprises. Mickey Mouse pulled a gun on Donald Duck.
Yeah, rightly so.
That one, yeah. In that musical, I can't remember the name of it. It was like they were in an orchestra and Donald wanted to leave.
Oh, yeah. Band concert? Well,
it was the 40s. It was a 40s cartoon.
Symphony Hour, maybe.
Yeah, symphony, something like that.
Yeah.
But I mean, now everything is cut out, trimmed. Tom used to smoke cigarettes. I grew up watching this, and I don't smoke.
No.
So but everything's got to have warnings. I mean, that is that's a whole nother conversation for another day, is the censorship and
but it's
changed.
Good that you bring it up because you can't sanitize everything,
Why do you need to? I mean, my mom let me watch things that were perhaps maybe a little too mature for somebody of my age, but
right.
we can talk about it.
Right.
And I can put it in its place and understand it. And it didn't influence any negative feelings towards what I think people are, all the stuff that people are afraid. It's like they don't feel that, I guess it's always kids they worry about, that they have no resilience whatsoever.
Right.
You can't do anything. When is it okay?
Mm-hmm.
See, then it gets to whereas even as an adult, you can't see somebody, cartoon smoking or using a gun.
Right.
When does that end? When is it finally okay to be a grown up?
Right. Popeyes are not on the air. And they're great cartoons, but once again, they're not on the air for the reason that it's cartoon violence. But Popeye's not a bad guy. He's getting bullied by this big thug, and then he pretty much battles him and wins the day, right? But they can't even show that on the air. There's bullies in school, There's bullies all over.
Is that something that actually was said, that you can't show Popeye cartoons?
No, I think it's just been a decision that, if you look around on the landscape, there's really no Popeye cartoons anywhere. It's not on local TV or on national TV, nothing on Saturday morning. You just don't see them. It might be because they're old cartoons too, but some of these cartoons that they put on that they're trying to depict, or they're trying to be akin to real life are not real life. It's kind of like somebody's imagined version of real life because there is bullies out there. And, it's like, it's one of those things that they're sanitizing, with the cartoons. Don't you agree?
Yes. And I'm going to tell you something else, which is a perfect example of why it's healthy to let kids, because I think things have gone like way too far today. Okay, one of my favorite books, along with reading and listening to my records, I read. I'm constantly just reading everything. So I had Little House on the Prairie book series. I loved it because Laura was born 100 years before me, roughly.
Right.
So, I imagine what if it was, me going through each book had a different segment of her life.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, in the Little House on the Prairie book itself, the one where they're out on the plains, I think it was Minnesota, and they set up their little house. Mm-hmm. They were dealing with, Indians.
Yeah.
Who, they had to interact with Indians that would come, and then they were watching the Indians being moved, off of the land to clear it for settlers. And then there was a chapter where the whole family gets sick and they're bedbound. They're at home. And a doctor comes to visit. His name was Dr. Tan. Okay. And Laura, in her eyes, as a 6-year-old, 7-year-old, as she was writing this way, Dr. Tan was black. Okay. Right. And this was really right after the Civil War. Maybe 10 years after the Civil War. Mm-hmm. And, she was like amazed in the book. She's saying she'd never seen somebody so very black, I think is how she worded it.
Right.
And, he gave him medicine or whatever and how nice he was and pleasant. And, the Garth Williams, I think, was the guy that illustrated, the books for her. Very soft, beautiful drawings. He drew a picture of him with his little doctor bag, helping them out in bed, and then he left.
Right.
And as a child, well, that's like a no-no here today. That's been criticized, and I think there was something where I don't know if they censored the book, but they kind of, I don't know whether her name was part of. It's really, I have to look it up, but there was this thing where you can't. That's bad. That interaction, the way it was written, kids could not be reading it. Now, I am fascinated. In fact, his full name was George Tan. Mm-hmm. And I looked him up, and, there's a grave and everything. I think, you could go visit it. That was great. Look, the way it was written, it's written, Ashley saw it, honestly. But I think it was really great that she included that.
Right.
And gave him his place in history. And it told me, what did I learn from that? Did I learn to be racist? Because Dr. Tan came to help them? They were cured. It taught me that there's a lot of different people in the world and a lot of great people, and that I knew there was the war and the slaves, and I knew about slavery back then, and that, not too long after that, here he is as a practicing doctor. Is amazing.
Right.
Why can't I learn about people like that? What are you trying to
hide?
Yeah. You trying to save me from the self that doesn't exist, from myself that does not allow me to grow up, allow me to hear about other people's experiences. I can take it through my filter and realize when this book was written in the 30s from the perspective of a 7-year-old girl. Allow me to be that mature is what I'm saying.
Right. Good point. Very good point. You see how this podcast goes from one thing to another, kind of.
Well, I'm trying.
But it's good. No, it's all. It's all good. It's all good.
Is it?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to kind of move in a timeline and explain the cartoon censorship and then where I'm coming from with that issue.
Yeah.
And
I say all the time, these, when I do these interviews, they can jump around. Sometimes they go on tangents, but it's all good because it's all important, things we should be talking about.
Conversation.
Yeah.
But
yeah, so, good. I'm sorry.
What I didn't mention is what were we doing? We were doing mostly at Warner Brothers. It was animation layout, which is a position that does not exist anymore.
Yeah, it's too bad.
Ken gave us little pieces of storyboards to do. Mm-hmm. I wasn't a board artist per se, but I got to work on. He divided it up and gave us all a little piece of script.
Right.
To work out the storyboard. So it's like I was learning that. And I did some character design later after Ken left.
Right.
And I found that I liked the boarding. Out of all the things that I was dabbling in, storyboarding was like the most appealing to me. Because look, that goes back to my books and comics and already kind of understanding a panel breakdown story sequence.
Well, it was your natural talent. Just now.
Yes. So we moved out of time. Oh, and here's another thing. All right.
Okay.
By May, it was January of 1990 that I started all those interviews and the tests and everything and going home,
right,
crying and everything. In May is when I got hired at Warner Brothers. So it was 5 months of going on interviews. In July, they had a Tiny Toons. Did you go to that? The Tiny Toons, like a rap party on the lot, Warner Brothers lot, where they turned it into a gym. Maybe it came a little bit after that.
I was working on Tiny Toons, I think toward the beginning of it, and then I came back. I was doing layout, and then I came back because I went back to Bluth, and then Ken called and he said, "Oh, we got a storyboard opening. Said if you want to do that," and I said I can get you good money. And so I said, okay, because we were in trouble. I think we were in trouble on, I don't know if it was Rockadoodle when I came back on. Might have been the Troll in Central Park that I was working on. But yeah, so I think I was doing a little bit of, like I storyboarded on 13-something. Remember 13-something? And that was an episode. And then...
are you talking about it? That was the name of a Tiny Toons episode?
Yeah, Two-Tone Town was another one.
Oh, yes. I remember those, the title card.
Yeah, and then I did some Elmira thing. Flee for Your Life was another one that I storyboarded. So I came back, I was working on that, and they loved everything I was doing when I came back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you may not have been around for this, but here's one of my greatest stories ever, literally.
Okay. And we can tell it here on the Cartoonerific podcast. Here it comes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, so I was working at a camera store in May, got hired. In July, they had the rap party, and they invited all of us, even if we didn't work on first season, invited everybody to the Warner Brothers lot into a soundstage, and they kind of decked it out to look like a high school gym, because the Tiny Toon characters were high school characters.
Right.
All right. So Dean McCurdy's up there, and probably Tim Sarnoff, all the big guys. Here we are. Thank you, everybody. Okay, we're all we're all standing kind of in the back of the gym, so to speak.
Right.
And looking at Gene up in the front.
Right.
And Steven Spielberg comes, just casually walking up to kind of, he's got this kind of raggedy old sweater that he was kind of holding,
right.
And he comes and it's like right next to me, because he was the executive producer.
Yeah.
And he's standing right next to me. This is 3 months after I was working at a camera store at the Orange Mall. I'm standing next to Steven Spielberg.
Right.
Okay, so, but that's not the best part of the story.
Okay.
He had this, I mentioned he had this kind of scrappy looking sweater that he was holding.
Right.
He sets this, okay, first of all, when he walked in, it's like, I thought, oh, look, wow, Spielberg himself. That's cool. The whole room changed from this kind of relaxed, we're having a good time, to this tension that you could feel because everybody knew Spielberg was right there. It's like a string has been pulled back as tight as everybody is struggling not to do anything, say anything. Yeah, it was so interesting.
Right.
To witness the dynamic of what happens around celebrities or whatever directors.
Right.
He takes the sweater, because he's sitting, he's going to listen. He's, completely like a normal guy, sets the sweater down, and he continues, he folds his arms, he's listening to, Dean's speech.
Right.
And it's over. Okay, so woo, and that everybody is just, struggling not to rough him.
Right.
And, I watch him, I turn and watch him, and he's like, oh, what happened to my sweater, And, about 30 people rough to grip that sweater and pull it over to him, he took it. And it's like, this is my first real taste of just the, upper echelons of brown nosing like I have never seen. This was all new to me.
Right.
It's like, that's cool. Spielberg's cool enough.
Right.
And he was a very casual, cool guy. He was, because he came and visited maybe once more or whatever. And he walked around like there's nothing pretentious about Spielberg. It's like he was one of us. He was, asking questions. And, everybody else was just, like I said, that tension. Yeah. The adrenaline that was being, the sweater story is just, that's like one of my favorites, just watching that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
No, that's pretty wild. He came in. I remember he came in. He came in at Warner Brothers, and he was very happy with Animaniacs. Yeah. Yeah,
we were all doing like little tests, animation tests, and I recorded one of the moments when he was talking to.
Oh, you did?
Phil Mosnes had the wherewithal to have a mini cassette player, and when Spielberg was walking around, Phil hit record. And it recorded another one of these epic, just brown-nosed episodes with people tripping all over themselves.
I think I know which one. I think I know which one this was, and it didn't have something to do with a specific Bob Clampett character.
No. Yeah.
I kind of remember it.
He wanted to know what other character was bouncy and stretchy like yes. And there are all these shouts of voices of people desperately trying to answer Steven Spielberg's questions. And then there's this little go-go, coming from Tom Ruger in the back.
And then everybody...
And it's like, that was it. No, he got the right answer.
And then everybody's...
Go. Yeah, then it became the questioning, confused go-go expression became, for years, we would go around go-go,
Yeah.
Because he was like, he didn't know, was that the right answer?
Yeah.
I actually wrote a whole script. I scripted that whole thing out, and we did it as a script.
That's funny.
Huh?
That's funny. I just remember it. Well, I just remember go like that, kind of that type of thing. It was like, go.
Yeah, but it was like way in the back room after everybody had blasted out the wrong answers. And Spielberg doesn't expect people to desperately scramble around for some inane little question like that. Anyway, those are golden moments. And then remember when we did that whole movie? We made a movie. We had some downtime.
Oh, yes.
And all of us did a movie about Richie's head bouncing around the office. Rich Aaron's lost his head.
I remember.
Remember you did that.
I remember.
You were working.
Yeah, I think I was involved with that one. I think Joey Banaskowitz was involved with that. Do you recall?
He was.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, because he provided the Tyrannosaurus Rex head that ate Richie.
There's a lot of good stuff going on over there. I remember they ran that in the conference room.
Golden times.
Yes. They ran that in the conference room, and it got big, big laughs. I remember a character sneezing, and basically it was like a lot of phlegm going across the room and hitting the wall. And
that's right.
Yeah,
yes.
That was part of it. And it was all very funny. But you could see, what was amazing about that was that the talent that was at that studio that could pull off something like this with I don't know if it was videotape at the time. Were we doing videotape, or were they using?
Yeah, it was video.
It was video. Yeah, it was videotape. So, yeah, it was all in camera, edited in camera. And
right.
Yeah, but no, it said a lot about the talent that was there, that, they were all very funny people and all very talented at what they could do. And they could put this together and get uproarious laughter. I remember that room just being, and somebody played Steven Spielberg in the movie.
Yeah, there was a guy at the studio, and he put a hat on, baseball hat, and he kind of looked like Steven, and I think, we had Richie sneeze on him?
Yes.
He was the one that got the...
That's right. And then, and then the Spielberg character ducks out of the way, and then it's just like, and I think it was shaving cream, but it looked pretty gross. It was green shaving cream. My God.
Those were good. Yeah.
They were fun. It was fun. It was fun times. It really was. But, I think everybody at that studio, and you were learning and you were coming along.
Sure. Yeah.
You were really coming along. You really, I think if you use that place as like a learning institution, you're getting paid to do this stuff, but you're learning so much more than, with just Tim George or just doing it on your own. Somebody's actually showing you. Yeah.
No, it's true. That was good for that time of my life. That was kind of like a little kick along the way. But then, finally I had the big kick. But Tim actually did end up joining us on Tiny Toons for a while too. He was there. He ended up moving to Warner Brothers, and then he went to Disney Feature.
Yeah.
Actually, he ended up, that was his big thing, was working for Disney.
Right.
So it's funny. The two of us from Fullerton ended up doing what we wanted to do. I mean, who would have guessed, from developing film and playing it on the bedroom wall, watching the horse run?
Well,
something actually happened from all that.
I think when you put yourself in doing, when you put people together and you start working on things and you start applying to different things, things happen. I mean, you made it happen. But I think about all these little things. If that didn't happen, where would you have been? Would you, I
know.
You ever think about that?
I do. It's like, what we'll talk about a little later with my business, I'll tell you how close it was for me meeting the people who ended up licensing all of my art.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was a meeting that only could have happened one time by accident, and it did happen.
Right.
So it's one of those weird, the paths crossed exactly when they needed to.
Right. Do you believe in coincidences? This is just a side thing.
I do. Yes, I do. Yeah, I think most of life is a coincidence, but I think you need to be ready for what the coincidence can give you.
See, I don't believe in coincidences. I think things happen.
Mm-hmm.
I think things happen for a reason. And I've always been like that. And there are certain things that I just keep going back over and over and over again. I'm like, this was meant to be. This was certainly meant to be. But, everybody has their own opinion on it, and that's fine. Nobody.
How do you think that energy works? Like, if there's two people who are cross country,
right,
and they somehow end up, like I mentioned, crossing,
right,
what is it that what do you think would be the catalyst for that happening? Or,
I don't know. I just think that there's something bigger. I think there's something bigger out there. I think you attract certain energies.
Okay, that I am intrigued by.
Yeah.
I would be definitely open to,
Look, if you asked me this 30 years ago, I would be. I don't even know what you're talking about. But
really?
yeah, but going through my life and the way things have kind of worked out, I'm like, some of these things are just incredible to me. So I think you attract certain things. I'm going to tell you a story. I'm writing a book, by the way, about all this stuff.
Nice.
And you know a little bit about it, and you do know a little bit about it. We used to run into Chris Burke all the time.
Chris Burke from Life Goes On?
Life Goes On. He played a character called Corky, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And where did you meet him? Or where were you running into him, on the lot?
Okay. Well, this is what happened. It was a Warner Brothers show. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, we'd have lunch on the lot, and occasionally, I think it was Paul Fisher. Remember Paul Fisher?
Yeah.
Paul Fisher.
Great artist.
Yes. Great. Fantastic artist. He would run into him all the time. And he would say, "I can't believe I ran into this guy, Corky, again."
Okay.
And I thought it was funny, and I'd tell people, "Yeah, this guy's around." Well, I think we went to a Christmas party on the lot, and there were I don't think there were any celebrities that we knew, but the one person that was at that Christmas party was this guy, Chris Burke. And so I was talking to Paul about that. It was just weird. Well, it's started happening to me where I just ran into him all the time. Either on the lot. I was doing a thing at Rancho Los Amigos. It was a benefit. He was on my team. It was 5 or 6 different people. I was a cartoonist, and we had Donna Mills and Brian Austin Green and Iron Eyes Cody. I don't know if you remember him. He was part of our small group, and we went around to these hospital wards around the holidays. People had really bad accidents or were treated for some sort of disease, whatever. But we would go around to those wards, try to cheer them up, right? So Chris Burke was there with me. And it just, I did a McDonald's thing where it was drawing, and Art Leonardi was there, and sure enough, Chris Burke was there too. And it was just really crazy. It just kept running into him all the time. So I was like, it drove me nuts, because I was like, why? And it almost became an obsession, like where am I going to go? I'm going to go to a bathroom, and he's going to be in the bathroom with me, So I left California. I came back to New York. And I was like, man, I want to get a good slice of New York pizza. And so I was living in Wantagh. And I go into this pizzeria, and I order a slice of pizza. Okay, it was 2 slices of pizza. But anyway, I turn around, and it's just a simple pizzeria. It has like not even 5 tables in it. And I turn around, and on the wall, it's just an empty wall. It has one picture of it on there, and it's Chris Burke, and it's autographed. And I'm looking at it, and I'm like just staring at it in disbelief. And I turn around to the guy. I said, "He was here?" And he goes, "Yeah, he lives around here."
Oh, really?
Yeah.
He lives in New York?
He was a New Yorker.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
So he lived in that town that I moved to. I was like, no.
Okay.
So
maybe
that was,
you are being followed.
Yeah. So no, that was weird. But I've had that happen a number of times in my life with different things. And so anyway, that's my story. I know this is not about me.
Do you have any questions or comments about the podcast? Please email Brian at Cartoonerific.com. Your email may be featured in one of our future shows.
Hey, wasn't that fun? Cynthia will be back next week for part 2 of our interview, so please come back for that. Well, I just want to say we've received some really great comments about the show. A lot of things that made me feel really good to know that there's some value to the content we're providing. So thank you for sending in those comments. I appreciate it. And if anybody else has comments about the show, and they could be, any suggestions about guests or whatever, or just a comment how much you like the show, please send them to me at brian@cartoonerific.com. If you really like what you're listening to, and if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to our podcast. This way you'll be notified every time a brand spanking new Cartoonerific podcast is uploaded for your listening pleasure. Also, very important, please let your friends know about us. If you really like the show, tell them. It really does help us out here. It helps us grow our audience, and it's so important. So please tell some people about us. Anyway, I want you to have a great day. I want you to have an excellent week, and we really appreciate you. And we'll see you next time.
This has been a Cartoonerific Studios presentation.
The Cartoonerific podcast is copyright 2024 by Cartoonerific Studios Incorporated. All rights reserved.